On the night of June 9th to June 10th, 1912, in Villisca, Iowa, a heinous crime unfolded. Josiah B. Moore, age 43, his wife Sarah, 39, their 4 children, Herman, 11, Mary Catherine, 10, Arthur Boyd, 7, and Paul Vernon, 5, and 2 young guests, Ina Mae Stillinger, 8, and Lena Gertrude Stillinger, 11, were brutally murdered in their sleep. All 8 victims were bludgeoned with an axe, and the crime scene was marked by eerie details. Mirrors covered with cloth, a gas lamp turned down to emit minimal light, and a basin of bloody water left in the kitchen. The killers entered through an unlocked door, committed the murders, and vanished without a trace. The investigation into Villisca Axe Murders was extensive but ultimately inconclusive. Several suspects emerged over the years, including Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who was in Villisca at the time and had a history of mental instability. He was arrested in 1917 and tried twice for the murders. However, both trials ended in acquittals due to lack of concrete evidence. Another theory implicated Frank F. Jones, a local businessman and former employer of Josiah Moore, who allegedly had a motive related to business rivalry. Despite these leads, no one was ever convicted, and the case remained unsolved for over a century. In 2017, a significant development occurred when forensic genealogist Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick and her team used genetic genealogy to identify a potential suspect in the case. By analyzing DNA samples from the crime scene and comparing them with genealogical databases, they traced a lineage to a man named William Blackie Mansfield, who had been previously considered a suspect. Mansfield had been linked to several other axe murders in the Midwest during the same time period, suggesting a possible serial killer operating under multiple aliases. However, due to the passage of time and lack of direct evidence, Mansfield was never formally charged in connection with the Villisca murders. The Villisca Axe Murders remain one of Iowa's most infamous unsolved crimes. While modern forensic techniques have provided new insights and potential leads, the true identity of the killers and the motive behind the massacre continue to elude investigators. The case serves as a haunting reminder of the limitations of early 20th century forensic science and the enduring mystery of unsolved crimes. Case number 2, the Zodiac Killer, 1960-1970s. Between 1968 and 1969, Northern California was terrorized by a series of brutal murders attributed to the elusive figure known as the Zodiac Killer. The confirmed victims include Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17, shot on December 20th, 1968, near Vallejo, California. Darlene Farron, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, shot on July 4th, 1969, at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Farron died. Mageau survived. Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepard, 22, stabbed on September 27, 1969, near Lake Berryessa in Napa County. Hartnell survived. Shepard died. Paul Stein, 29, shot on October 11, 1969, in San Francisco's Presidio Heights. The Zodiac Killer sent taunting letters to local newspapers, claiming responsibility for the murders and threatening further violence. These letters often included cryptic ciphers, some of which remain unsolved to this day. Despite extensive investigations, the killer was never apprehended, and the case remains one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. In 2021, a team of investigators known as the Case Breakers claimed to have identified the Zodiac Killer as Gary Francis Post, a deceased U.S. Air Force veteran who died in 2018. The team alleged that Post's name appeared in anagrams within the Zodiac's letters, and that he bore physical scars matching those described by witnesses. They also suggested that Post was linked to other unsolved murders, including the 1966 killing of Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California. However, law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and San Francisco Police Department, have not officially confirmed Post's involvement. They maintain that the Zodiac Killer case remains open and unsolved, and no conclusive evidence has been presented to definitively identify the killer. Unlike the Golden State Killer case, where DNA evidence played a crucial role in identifying the perpetrator, the Zodiac Killer case lacks confirmed DNA evidence directly linking a suspect to the crimes. While investigators have attempted to extract DNA from stamps and envelopes used in the Zodiac's letters, these efforts have not yielded definitive results. The lack of physical evidence and the passage of time have made it challenging to solve the case. Advances in forensic technology, such as genetic genealogy, have been instrumental in solving other cold cases, but as of now, no such breakthrough has occurred in the Zodiac killer investigation. The Zodiac killer remains an enigma, with numerous theories and suspects but no confirmed identity. Case number 3. The Black Dahlia Murder, 1947. On January 15, 1947, the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short was discovered in a vacant lot in the Leimert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles. Her body had been severed at the waist, drained of blood, and meticulously posed. The brutal nature of the crime and the subsequent media frenzy led to her being posthumously dubbed the Black Dahlia. The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, launched an extensive investigation into Short's murder. The case garnered national attention, leading to numerous false confessions and widespread media coverage. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, the case remained unsolved for decades. In 2003, former LAPD Detective Steve Hodel published a book suggesting that his father, Dr. George Hodel, was responsible for the murder. Hodel argued that his father's medical background and suspicious activities linked him to the crime. He presented evidence such as handwriting analysis and circumstantial connections to support his theory. Advances in forensic technology have allowed for the re-examination of evidence from the Black Dahlia case. In 2018, a retired LAPD detective revealed that new forensic investigations at Dr. George Hodel's estate uncovered evidence linking him to the murder. Soil samples taken from the property tested positive for chemical markers associated with human decomposition, suggesting the presence of other victims. The Black Dahlia murder remains one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in American history. While forensic advancements have provided new insights and theories, the true identity of Elizabeth Short's killer remains a haunting mystery. The case continues to captivate public interest and serves as a chilling reminder of the complexities involved in solving cold cases. Case number 4. The Boy in the Box, 1957. On February 25, 1957, the lifeless body of a young boy, estimated to be around 4 years old, was discovered in a cardboard box in a wooded area off Susquehanna Road in the Fox Chase neighborhood of Philadelphia. The boy had been severely malnourished, beaten, and had surgical scars on his ankle, groin, and chin. His hair had been recently cut and his nails trimmed, suggesting he had been cleaned and groomed before his death. Despite extensive investigations and widespread media coverage, the child's identity remained a mystery for over 6 decades. In 2022, a breakthrough in forensic technology led to the identification of the boy as Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born on January 13, 1953. Forensic genealogists, including Colleen Fitzpatrick and Misty Gillis, utilized DNA analysis and genealogical databases to trace his lineage. A distant cousin had uploaded their DNA to a public database, which led investigators to Zarelli's maternal side. Further investigation revealed his full name and confirmed his identity. The identification was made possible through the use of genetic genealogy, a technique that combines DNA analysis with genealogical research to identify individuals. This method has been instrumental in solving other cold cases, including the identification of the Golden State Killer. In Zarelli's case, DNA samples were extracted from his remains, and genealogists used these samples to build a family tree that led to his identification. The breakthrough highlighted the power of modern forensic science in solving long unsolved mysteries. Despite the identification of Joseph Augustus Zarelli, the circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear. The case is still considered an open homicide investigation. Authorities continue to seek information from the public to uncover the details of his life and the events leading to his tragic end. A $20,000 reward has been offered for information leading to an arrest or conviction in the case. Joseph Augustus Zarelli was reburied at Ivy Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia, where a new gravestone bearing his name was unveiled on what would have been his 70th birthday. The gravestone bears the inscription, America's Unknown Child, honoring his memory and the decades-long search for his identity. The case serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of forensic science in bringing justice to those who cannot speak for themselves. Case number 5. The Long Island Serial Killer 2010s. Between 1993 and 2011, the remains of at least 11 individuals, primarily women believed to be sex workers, were discovered along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach on Long Island, New York. The victims were often found in a similar manner, dismembered and wrapped in burlap sacks, leading investigators to believe they were the work of a single serial killer. The case remained unsolved for over 2 decades, with the killer eluding capture despite extensive investigations and media attention. In July 2023, Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect from Massapequa Park, was arrested and charged with the murders of 3 women, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. He was later indicted for the murders of 4 additional women. Heuermann's arrest marked a significant breakthrough in a case that had stumped investigators for years. The breakthrough in the case came through the use of advanced DNA testing techniques. Investigators obtained DNA from a discarded pizza crust that Heuermann had thrown away in Manhattan. The DNA from the crust was linked to hair found on the victims' bodies, providing a crucial connection between Heuermann and the murders. This method, known as familial DNA testing, had been instrumental in solving other cold cases. Further investigation revealed that Heuermann had been in contact with several of the victims prior to their deaths. His phone records showed numerous calls and messages to the victims, and his email accounts contained searches related to their disappearances. Additionally, investigators discovered that Heuermann had been using burner phones to communicate with the victims, a tactic often employed by serial killers to avoid detection. Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense team has challenged the admissibility of the DNA evidence, arguing that the testing methods used were unreliable. However, a New York judge ruled that the DNA evidence could be used in Heuermann's trial, stating that the techniques employed were generally accepted in the scientific community. While Heuermann has been charged with the murders of 7 women, investigators believe there may be additional victims. They are continuing to examine unsolved cases in the area to determine if Heuermann is responsible for other crimes. Case number 6, the Sam Shepard case, 1954. On the night of July 3rd to 4th, 1954, in Bay Village, Ohio, Dr. Samuel Holmes Shepard, a 30-year-old osteopathic physician, reported that an intruder had broken into his home and bludgeoned his 31-year-old wife, Marilyn Reese Shepard, to death while he was knocked unconscious. Shepard claimed to have chased the assailant, described as a bushy-haired man, down to Lake Erie before losing consciousness again. Despite his account, Shepard was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The case garnered national attention, and Shepard's trial was marred by extensive media coverage, which some argue influenced the proceedings. In December 1954, Shepard was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. However, his legal team, led by attorney F. Lee Bailey, appealed the conviction, arguing that Shepard had been denied a fair trial due to the prejudicial publicity surrounding the case. In 1966, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed, ruling in Shepard v. Maxwell that the media's interference had compromised Shepard's right to a fair trial. The court's decision was pivotal in shaping future standards for media coverage of criminal trials. In 1997, Shepard's body was exhumed for DNA testing as part of a civil suit filed by his son to clear his father's name. The DNA analysis revealed the presence of a third party's blood at the crime scene, supporting Shepard's long-standing claim that an intruder was responsible for his wife's murder. This evidence played a crucial role in exonerating Shepard posthumously. The case continued to intrigue the public and inspired the 1993 film The Fugitive, starring Harrison Ford, which fictionalized the events surrounding Shepard's trial and subsequent escape. Several alternative theories have been proposed regarding Marilyn Shepard's murder. One prominent suspect is Richard Eberling, a handyman who had worked at the Shepard home. Eberling had stolen Marilyn's rings and had been questioned about various burglaries in the area. In 1984, he was convicted of the murder of Ethel May Durkin, a wealthy widow, and was suspected in other deaths as well. However, despite circumstantial evidence, Eberling was never charged in connection with Marilyn Shepard's death. Case number 7, the Hinterkaifeck Murders, 1922. On March 31st, 1922, 6 members of the Gruber family and their maid, Maria Baumgartner, were brutally murdered at the Hinterkaifeck farmstead in Bavaria, Germany. The victims were killed with a mattock, a farming tool, and their bodies were found in various locations around the property. What makes this case particularly eerie is the evidence suggesting that the killers may have lived in the house with the corpses for several days after murders. The animals were fed, fires were lit, and food was consumed, indicating that the perpetrators remained on the premises undetected. In recent years, there have been attempts to apply modern forensic techniques, including DNA analysis, to the case. However, these efforts have not yielded definitive results. The passage of time, the lack of preserved evidence, and the destruction of the original crime scene have all posed significant challenges to investigators. Despite these obstacles, the case continues to intrigue and haunt those who study it, and it remains a subject of speculation and investigation. While DNA testing has been employed in other cold cases with success, the Hinterkaifeck case presents unique challenges. The original farmhouse was demolished shortly after the murders, and many of the physical evidences were lost or destroyed. Additionally, the advanced forensic techniques available today were not available at the time of the investigation, leaving many questions unanswered. Nevertheless, the case has inspired numerous studies and analyses, and it continues to be a focal point for those interested in unsolved mysteries and forensic science. Over the years, several theories and suspects have been proposed. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who discovered the bodies and was involved in the initial investigation. Some have speculated that his actions during the discovery were suspicious, though there is no concrete evidence linking him to the crime. Carl Gabriel, Victoria Gabriel's husband, who was believed to have died in World War I. Some theories suggest he may have survived and returned to commit the murders. The Bickler brothers, two local men who were suspected by a former mate of the Gruber family. She reported that one of them had made threatening remarks about the family. The Thaler brothers, another set of brothers who were known to have committed minor crimes in the area. They were reportedly familiar with the Gruber family and had been seen near the farm before the murders. Despite these theories, no one has been definitively identified as the perpetrators, and the case remains open. The Hinterkaifeck murders have left an indelible mark on German history and continue to captivate the imagination of people worldwide. The site of the former farmstead is now marked by a memorial, and the story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and articles. The case serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unsuspecting places and the enduring mystery of unsolved crimes. Case number 8, the Fitbit murder of Connie DeBate, 2015. 2 days before Christmas 2015, Richard DeBate called 911 from his home in Ellington, Connecticut. He said a masked intruder shot his wife Connie and tied him to a chair. Police found Connie dead in the basement from gunshot wounds. Richard had superficial injuries and a story full of detail. It began to fall apart once detectives pulled the digital trail. Connie's Fitbit recorded her walking around the house lawn after the time Richard said she was killed. The home's key fob, alarm, and phone logs contradicted his timeline. Facebook messages and other records showed a marriage under strain and a secret pregnancy with another woman. The stage scene did not match his account. The small pieces lined up into one picture. Prosecutors charged Richard with murder, tamper with evidence, and making a false statement. At trial, jurors heard from more than 100 witnesses and reviewed hundreds of exhibits, including the Fitbit data admitted after a reliability hearing. In 2022, the jury found him guilty. He received 65 years in prison. In March 2025, the Connecticut Supreme Court upheld the conviction, noting that the evidence was overwhelming despite some prosecutorial missteps. The twist is simple and chilling. The killer counted on an old story about a stranger in a mask. The victim's own step counter, along with the home's devices, told the truth and closed the case. Case number 9, the vanishing and return of Sherry Papini, 2016. On November 2nd, 2016, 34-year-old Sherry Papini went out for a jog near her home in Redding, California, and never came back. When her husband returned home and found her missing, he grew frantic. Her phone and earbuds were discovered along the trail, strands of her hair tangled in them. The image was chilling, an abduction in broad daylight. For 3 weeks, the nation was gripped. Posters went up. Vigils were held. News outlets across the country broadcast appeals for information. Then, on Thanksgiving morning, Sherry was found alive on the side of a road, bruised, emaciated, with a chain around her waist. She told investigators she had been kidnapped by two armed Hispanic women who had kept her captive and abused her before inexplicably releasing her. Her story ignited sympathy and fear. Was there a pair of predators on the loose? Were other women in danger? Detectives combed through evidence for years, but something about her account never added up. In 2020, the first crack appeared. A DNA sample taken from clothes Sherry was wearing when she resurfaced matched not to unknown women, but to an old boyfriend in Southern California. When confronted, he admitted that Sherry had been staying with him during her disappearance, hiding in his apartment while the world searched for her. He described how she injured herself to make her ordeal look real: burns, bruises, even a brand mark. The investigation unraveled the lie piece by piece. By 2022, Papini confessed. She had staged her own kidnapping, motivated by a mix of emotional turmoil, financial gain, and a hunger for attention. She had even accepted tens of thousands of dollars in victim assistance funds during the years following her abduction. The twist was staggering. The nation had mourned and prayed for her. The FBI had spent untold resources. And in the end, the supposed victim was the architect of the crime. In September 2022, Sherry Papini was sentenced to 18 months in prison for making false statements and committing mail fraud. The case left a scar on public trust, a reminder that even the most harrowing stories can hide a calculated deception. Case number 10. The murder of Travis Alexander, 2008. On June 9th, 2008, friends of Travis Alexander forced their way into his Mesa, Arizona, home after not hearing from him for days. What they found was a scene of horror. Travis's body lay slumped in the shower. His throat had been slit ear to ear. He had nearly 30 stab wounds and a gunshot to the head. Whoever killed him had unleashed a frenzy. The immediate suspicion turned to his ex-girlfriend, Jodi Arias. She told detectives she had nothing to do with it. Calm, polite, even helpful, she denied any involvement. But investigators were not convinced. Soon, Jodi changed her story. First, she blamed two mass intruders. Then she admitted she killed Travis, but claimed it was in self-defense. The real twist came from a small digital device found in Travis's washing machine. His camera, though water-damaged, investigators were able to recover the memory card. On it were explicit photographs of Travis and Jodi taken the day of the murder. One image showed Travis alive, posed in the shower at 5:29 p.m. Just minutes later, another photo, blurred and seemingly accidental, showed Travis bleeding on the bathroom floor and Jodi's foot captured in the frame. It was chilling. She had photographed her victim in the very moments before and during his murder. The trial that followed became one of the most publicized in modern history. Jodi Arias testified for days, spinning a narrative of abuse, jealousy, and survival. Jurors, however, were confronted with evidence that painted a far darker story. Her repeated lies, her attempt to clean the crime scene, and above all, the camera that betrayed her. In May 2013, Arias was convicted of first-degree murder. She narrowly avoided the death penalty after two deadlocked juries and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The twist of this case lies in how the killer herself preserved her crime. A dropped camera, forgotten in haste, became the silent witness that dismantled her lies. A reminder that sometimes, in the most brutal crimes, the evidence is hiding in plain sight. From decades-old cold cases to long-forgotten mysteries, modern technology has proven to be the key to unlocking the truth. DNA analysis, genetic genealogy, and advanced forensic tools have revolutionized criminal investigations, giving law enforcement new hope in solving crimes that once seemed impossible. But the question remains, how many more cold cases are out there, waiting for their moment? With every new breakthrough, justice is within reach. Stay tuned for more true crime stories solved by the very technology that's rewriting the rules of crime solving. The impossible is becoming possible one breakthrough at a time.